In this video, we asked the question, can anyone dethrone UCLA in the MPSF this year? We're discussing that and breaking down the coaches poll in this video. Let's get right into it. Every single year, each men's volleyball conference breaks down a preseason poll from the coaches, ranking each team based on who they think is going to finish first, second, third, all the way through last. And this season, UCLA was the unanimous first overall ranking for the MPSF, which is the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation, one of the best men's volleyball conferences in Division I. This comes as no surprise. We know this UCLA team brings back a lot of studs. Andrew Rowan, Cooper Robinson headlining that list, along with Ito David, Zach Rama, and some newcomers, Cameron Thorne, into the mix, as well as some of their freshmen that we've talked about in previous videos. But enough of UCLA. Let's talk about who they're going up against this year in the MPSF, who is some of their strongest competition, and based on the results of that coaches ranking, who we think is going to end up in those top 2 and 3 slots at the end of the season and going to get those bids to Ohio State, the Covelli Center, for the NCAA tournament. Now, if you haven't looked at the preseason coaches rankings, here it is on the screen for you guys. You can see UCLA at the top. No surprise there. They got all the votes for the number 1 overall ranking. Like I said, with all the guys they bring back. Maybe a shock to some is USC getting the number 2 overall seed after going 3-9 last year in the MPSF and 13-15 overall. They have some new additions to their roster that we'll talk about. BYU, number 3rd, 16-9 last year, 7-5 in the MPSF. Pepperdine, number 4, making a jump with some of their additions and some of their moves in the transfer portal. They were 5-7 last year. And one of the biggest declines in the list is Grand Canyon after a 10-2 MPSF conference season last year. They're 5th overall in the preseason rank. 6 is Stanford, 7 is Concordia, 8 and 9 are Vanguard and Menlo, 2 additions to the MPSF and 2 Division II programs that made the jump to Division I. So we'll see how they fare this year in the new conference and an expanding conference, which is always great for the sport and great for men's volleyball. So, like I said, we know what UCLA can bring to the table. We know their roster depth is a key part of their game. Like I've talked about before, Johnny Hawks, new addition as their coach this season with the exit of Sproul. So we'll see how he can lead this Bruins team. They had their exhibition match against Trinity Western, one of Canada's top programs. They swept them 3-0 like it was nothing. So really good start for the Bruins in that exhibition, and they enter their first game in just a couple days, and we'll see what it's like against games that really count for their schedule going forward. But we know why they're favorite. I don't have to go into super detail about why the Bruins are the number 1 favorite. Not only are they favored in the MPSF, but also the overall rankings. They're 1st overall, which checks out for them. So we're here to talk about their challengers. Who is going to go up against these Bruins and compete against them in the MPSF? The most likely candidate based on the coaches' rankings, and I think it's a pretty wise choice, is the USC Trojans. Dylan Klein, Caleb Blanchett, Wesley Smith, Guy Genis, a big transfer from UCLA, Sterling Foley, and a couple youngsters, Parker Tompkinson into the mix. They're as deep a team as they've ever been. They have the most talent they've had in quite some time. And I think this is their year to continue to build and get better. I don't know if this is their year to necessarily take down a UCLA, but I think they can definitely compete with them and give them a run for their money with the level of competition that they do have. Everyone that they bring back, hopefully another year of experience, will bode well for them. That being said, USC hosted a 8-team 24-match tournament featuring several California teams, UCLA, Stanford, Pepperdine, Concordia, Vanguard, and more, and didn't have their best performance in the fall a couple months ago. Went 3-3 on the day and lost to UCLA, Pepperdine, and Stanford. Now, these exhibition matches, these fall ball matches, are sometimes a chance to get some new guys in there, mix lineups around. Sometimes you're splitting your team in half. So it's not to say that's a complete picture of, what their season is going to look like. Not the most encouraging thing in the world when you're losing 3 of probably the bigger games during that exhibition, especially against Pepperdine and Stanford, which on paper are 2 teams that you would expect USC to beat. I got a chance to watch this USC team up close and personal last season when they beat Penn State 3-1 at home, a really fun game. I think they got a lot of talent. I think Dylan Klein is going to be their guy this year, and they're going to put the team on his back as much as possible and see what he can do to lead them to beat the Bruins this season. The next team to challenge the Bruins is the BYU Cougars. They have 2 All-American outsides returning in Luke Benson and Romansis, and then they bring in Keani Tim as a third outside, who I think is probably going to split time between those 2 guys. Sean Olmstead, their coach, talked a lot during an interview in the preseason how much depth this team has, more than last year, and how that's really going to be a pillar for this team going forward, and how that's going to sustain them to win a lot of matches this season is their depth at all positions. So at the outside, they lose Trent Moser, but they bring back Tion Taylor, a 73 total block, middle blocker from last season. So he's going to be a primetime player for the Cougars. They bring back Tyler Hergit, junior setter, who had a strong season last year. So they bring back some guys. I think they have the most difficult schedule, definitely in the MPSF, potentially one of the most difficult in the country. They lead with Ohio State, then they play UC Irvine, Hawaii, and Grand Canyon, I think back to back. So those are some tough matches early on. We'll see how they're able to rally off some of these matches back to back. It's not always easy to do that, so I think they have the talent to win a lot of games, but it's going to be a tough schedule for this BYU team. But that being said, I think they'll show up when it counts for a big UCLA match when they play them at home and on the road in Pauley. And the third team in the MPSF, I think, that can give a run for UCLA's money is GCU. I know they have a lot of departures from last season. Cameron Thorne, Nick Slight, and Camden Gianni being 3 of those main guys from last year. But I think they're going to ride the back of Jared Anderson. He had a big rise last year on the opposite and played really well against UCLA. And I just think they are the best team built to beat this Bruins team. I know Pepperdine has made a lot of changes. I know Stanford is a team that people talk about as being on the rise this year. But I think GCU is that third team, that third challenger that stands a chance to upset the Bruins in a game or 2 during the regular season and conference play. So yeah, my 3 matches to watch this year is going to be UCLA USC, which is a match that a guy like Trent Taliaferro already said one he's looking forward to the most this season. I think him going up against Sterling Foley is going to be fun. UCLA versus BYU and UCLA versus GCU. Those are 3 MPSF matchups that have big implications, getting that number 1 seed in the conference and an auto bid to the tourney with a conference win is the easiest way to setting yourself up for a national championship, which UCLA has done the last 2 seasons. So we'll see if they can do it again with these challengers, trying to fight them down. I know the bigger you get in men's volleyball, the harder it is to win because everyone wants to tear you down. Like I've said before, no one has won 3 times in a row in the last 25, 30 years, could be more. Everyone's going to give UCLA their best shot. A couple more pieces of information about the MPSF. Number 1, Menlo and Vanguard, 2 Division II programs added into the conference. But this season, they are not required by every other team to play them. Because there's 9 teams, there's only so many weekends available to play these matches. These 2 teams will be rotated into conference play over the next couple seasons, but for this year, it is not a requirement for all the other teams to play them. So that's why you might only see Concordia play Menlo or Pepperdine play Vanguard. You're not going to see every single matchup this year. That's going to happen over the course of time. It's not an obligation, and it's something these teams are going to work out as they plan their schedules in the future. But yeah, personally, my rankings, I have only one change. I think it's going to be UCLA, USC, BYU, Grand Canyon 4, Pepperdine 5, Stanford 6, Concordia 7, Vanguard 8, Menlo 9. I think GCU is a little bit better than Pepperdine, but we'll see. The season starts soon. I'm excited for it. Let me know your predictions for the MPSF. Let me know who you think stands to take down the UCLA Bruins. Also looking for any sleepers in this conference. Who do you think is going to be a difference maker in the MPSF? Maybe not a guy that we talk about all the time on USC or UCLA, but who's a guy from Stanford that you think is going to have a big season this year? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit me in the comments. We'll be following all the action as it drops when the season starts shortly. So thanks for tuning into the videos as always, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
So